This Family Mastermind, Matt has done such an awesome job really making this one about leadership, and I'm so excited for John Maxwell. But, I saw this quote the other day, and it just hit me. This was so fitting about leadership, and it's really about the wonderful guy that got us all in this room, and that is Matt Andrews. And Matt, here is the quote. I'm gonna ruin the quote, but the concept is the same. It's great leaders lead people, right? We'll agree, right? We know what that is. We know what it's like because we've been leaders, we've been followers throughout our lives. But really, really great leaders make other leaders. And that's what Matt Andrews does. So let's give Matt a big, giant hand for that, I don't know if you all realize it, how difficult it must be. The Family Mastermind goes around, it touches each person. It includes each person in something. Matt is so good about that to make sure that, there are people speaking, there are people introducing, there are people interviewing, there are people on the Zoom sessions, the digital sessions, and somehow with, 300-ish people, he gets around the whole room and all of you get touched. That's an amazing, amazing thing to do. I've been in many mastermind groups, and believe me, it's not like that, okay? This is really special, the family. So just wanted to start with that. Okay, so one of the things I talk about a lot, if you listen to my shows or watch my YouTube where I'm sandboxed and they won't let my channel grow, is I talk a lot about inflation. Okay? And I think inflation is the ultimate hack, really. It is such an incredibly powerful tool for us to use to our benefit as real estate investors. And I'm not going to go into my whole thing that I trademarked years ago, inflation-induced debt destruction today, but just as a premise for what I'm going to talk about, I created something years ago I call the ultimate investing equation. And here's just a little bit of it, a piece of it, right? Think about it. You find an asset, and then you say, okay, I'm only going to pay for 20% of it if you're using conventional financing. You get the bank to pay for 80% of it, and then you say, well, I don't really like this whole debt thing. I have to repay 80%, so I'm going to delegate that to someone called a tenant. Okay, and then I'm going to say to the government, look, I've provided housing. I want a big tax break here, and I want the ultimate tax break, which is depreciation, because that's a non-cash write-off or a phantom write-off. We all love depreciation. This is literally the ultimate investing equation. It is the EMC squared of investing, or E equals MC squared. That's the equation, actually, of investing, is that ultimate investing equation. So with the inflation-induced debt destruction concept, we are basically in a war. Now, it's not the war you're probably thinking of, okay? But this is a war that I've been talking about for at least 15 years or so, and that is the war between bad fiscal and monetary policy. Okay, so remember, fiscal policy is what the government does. It's taxing and spending. It's largely done through the House Ways and Means Committee, okay? How many of you think our government is just going great? Okay, no hands. Wow, okay, I'm in the right place because I agree with you. So that's the fiscal side, right? But then the monetary side of the equation is what the central bank does. Now, the central bank is the whole cartel is a big scam. You probably all read The Creature from Jekyll Island. G. Edward Griffin, the author's been on my show several times. Really great stuff, right? But we have what we have. So what I try to teach people to do is basically align their interest with the two most powerful forces the world has ever known, governments and central banks, right? Philosophically, I hate what they do. I disagree with it. But practically, I'm going to align my interests with them and I'm going to ride on their coattails. Because when you borrow money on real estate and you pay it back in cheaper dollars over time, that is the ultimate hidden wealth creator that most people just don't see. So I've talked about that before at past family meetings, but I just wanted to bring that up because it's going to kind of set up a little bit of what I'm going to talk about today. And remember, as you're paying back in cheaper dollars, as those dollars get debased, it debases the value of the monthly mortgage payment that your tenant is paying, but it also debases the value of the entire loan balance. Okay, so it really works for you in two ways. And we've had some pretty bad inflation over the past couple of years, right? So think about it. Just the official number for inflation, according to the Consumer Price Index, the CPI, I call it the CP lie, okay, because it is a lie. It's manipulated in three major ways: weighting, substitution, and hedonic indexing. Okay, so if the price of beef goes up, they assume everybody will just substitute and go to chicken, but maybe you don't like chicken. It's a dirty bird, okay? You don't want chicken, okay? You want your burgers. And so that's what happens. That's substitution, weighting, how much they weight each thing in the basket of goods. And then hedonic indexing, I just got a couple of days ago a new iPhone from that corrupt, greedy company, Apple, okay? This iPhone cost about $1,400, and my last iPhone was the same price. But this iPhone's a lot faster and more powerful, so they assume that I paid less for it. Because hedonic indexing, the root word is hedonism, how much pleasure we get out of something, right? Seeking pleasure is hedonism. So they assume that because the technology keeps getting better, that the cost of the thing was less. And that is actually true, right? But imagine if you hedonically indexed everything since, let's just take Thomas Edison and the light bulb, okay? Life keeps getting better, and that's true. And what the government is saying with their indexing is that we are not entitled to progress. It belongs to the Consumer Price Index, right? And things should keep getting better because that's the way of things, right? It's evolutionary, right? One discovery, one invention builds on another. So the war I'm talking about is the war between bad fiscal and monetary policy and technology. And technology has amazed us all. I think it was Buckminster Fuller that said something to the effect of, and I'm going to mess this one up, that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Okay? A few decades ago, if you would have shown someone of this, if you could travel back in time, they would say that's magic. Like, it's incredible, right? And there's all these amazing technologies. So technology is deflationary, and bad fiscal and monetary policy is inflationary. So if you look at it like this, say it's a boxing match, right? And remember the Olympics when the trans athlete got into the boxing ring and knocked the girl out, right? And everybody was outraged. They thought that was so outraged, but maybe they're asking the wrong question. Why is there girls boxing in the first place? Like, that might be the right question. Why are women trying to do a men's sport? Like, it's barbaric, okay? I mean, it's arguable, okay, to say, why is there even men's boxing? Because it's barbaric, right? You could say that. But anyway, whatever, I digress. So what was I talking about? Inflation, deflation, technology. Oh yeah, boxing ring. So say it's a boxing ring, and in one corner you've got bad fiscal and monetary policy. In another corner you've got technology. And they go into the ring and they fight. And the outcome of the fight is going to be inflation or deflation, okay? So why am I talking about this? Well, let's just keep going. One of the things I've been saying on my show for the last 15 years or so is this, and a lot of people like this quote, and I haven't said it as much lately because I'm not feeling it, but here's the quote. It's an amazing time to be alive, right? Well, I'm a little grumpy lately, and I don't feel like it's such an amazing time anymore. But it really is an amazing time, to be fair, right? And Kim kind of alluded to that when she was talking about, what you expect and expectations. She was kind of alluding to that idea, right? It is an amazing time to be alive. No question about it. Technology is amazing us in so many ways. But the powers that be also have the benefit of technology. Surveillance, scalability. This is the thing technology offers, the dark side, right? And so I saw this tweet, recently. Liz Wheeler put it up and said, your grandma died alone in the hospital. Your husband was fired over a mandate. Your teenage son has heart problems. You lost your business. You weren't allowed to go to church. Your 2-year-old was forced to wear a mask. But you want to forget the whole thing, right? That was the state of things just a couple of years ago, right? Let's not forget that. And so it's really important to forget it, or not to forget it, to remember it, okay? Because in about 40 days, you're going to have to make a decision, and it's a pretty easy one if you ask me. But anyway, housing affordability, I mean, unless you're not very smart. Okay, so then it's a hard decision. Okay, so housing affordability, right? We have an affordability crisis. Who would agree with this, right? Houses are very unaffordable. But the question is, are you sure about that? So at prior Family Masterminds, over the years, I talked to you about this index I created, the Hartman Comparison Index, the HCI, okay? And the HCI answers life's most important question. What is life's most important question? Some of you know it because you listen to my show, right? Compared to what? That's the most important question in life, because the only way we know anything is by comparing it to something else. It's a really important concept, okay? So the index takes 42 commodities, including labor-oriented commodities, and compares it to the price of the median-priced house. So let's just go back to, say, the year 2000. Nice even number. Look with me on the chart at the year 2000. The median house price was $147,000. Gold was $283. If you wanted to trade gold for a house, it would be 520 ounces of gold. But today, it only takes 190 ounces of gold to buy the median price house. So, you all think houses are expensive? Are you sure, right? Priced in gold, is it cheap or expensive? It's actually cheaper, right? It hasn't always been that way, because if you look at the past, right, sometimes, it was more expensive and less expensive, right, over the years. Now, 1970 isn't a good one because the gold price was controlled before Nixon took us off the gold standard. So oil is arguably the most important commodity in the world, right? So in 1970, okay, because oil price wasn't controlled, oil was $4 a barrel, the median house price was $23,000, 6,400 barrels of oil to buy a house. In July of this year, it was only 5,700 barrels of oil. So priced in oil, are houses cheap or expensive? Now, why does this matter? Well, it matters because you might think, well, Jason, I'm not buying a house in oil, I'm not buying a house in gold. Well, first of all, around the world, they do buy houses in gold all the time. That's how the trading is done. You literally bring your gold in and buy a house, okay? But what you could do is, as you're saving money and accumulating for that down payment, you could invest in oil or gold or a zillion other things and store your wealth that way and then convert it to dollars at the last minute, and there you go. That's why it matters. Okay, and there's 42 things in the index. All right. So let's look at housing prices, and let's look at why all the experts pretty much got it wrong, and Jason Hartman got it right. Thank you. I know. Give him a hand. I got this right. You have no idea how many trolls I suffered to get this right. Okay? People were bashing me. Look on my YouTube and look at the comments. I've just become a total jerk. I just reply back to them and tell them off. Okay? You know who I got that from? Oh, by the way, great book. Saifedean, The Bitcoin Standard. Really good book. I'm a moderate Bitcoin fan. I'm not like a crazy guy about it. But it's a really good book about economics and history. You all should read The Bitcoin Standard. It's a really interesting book. Anyway, here's what happened, is that everybody, when the interest rate hikes occurred, they thought housing affordability went down the tubes. Nobody will be able to afford a house. And they're right. That's true. But they were standing in the museum looking at the painting 6 inches away when they should have backed up and seen the big picture. And the big picture is this. Here's the chart. Here's the way affordability was after the rates went up. This is the payment to income ratio, okay? It got really bad. It's still fairly bad, right? It's unaffordable. But they looked at this. They looked at new people entering the market. And that was a huge mistake. It was myopic. They should have backed up from the painting and looked at the big picture. And what did the big picture tell us? It was the people controlling the inventory that mattered. See, when the interest rate hikes happened, housing sales volume plummeted. And since then, there have only been maybe 9 or 10 million homes traded. Well, there's 140 million homes in the country. 130 million of them didn't trade. And guess what? All of those people that own those 130 million homes have super cheap mortgages, very comfortable payments, and, well, actually, here's exactly what they have. 65% of the country has a mortgage 4% or below. 24% has a mortgage 3% or lower. But always ask, compared to what? Life's most important question. And the compared to what goes into kind of another concept that's a really important concept, and that is you can't hear the dogs that don't bark. Well, on this chart, there's a dog not barking, and it's a really important thing. There's a really important thing the chart isn't saying. What isn't it telling us? Yeah, thank you. All right. What? Yeah, a lot of boomers or just people in general that don't have a mortgage at all. About 60% of the country has no mortgage, okay? Or sorry, 40%. That's wrong. I got it backwards, okay? So let's look at the market like this. Visualize your kitchen sink, okay? So in your kitchen sink, you have three elements. You have the faucet, you have the basin, and you have the drain, okay? The faucet represents new properties coming up for sale. The basin represents the existing inventory that's on the market now, and the drain represents buyer demand, or the absorption rate. How many people are buying houses, right? Well, what do we have now? We have a faucet that is just trickling, a little bit of inventories coming on the market, more than before, certainly, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. We have a basin, and the basin, now, compared to what? If the basin was full, let's call that a normal, healthy, balanced market. What do we have now? The basin is half full, or if you're Peter Schiff or any doomer, it's half empty, okay? So half full, half empty. That's the basin. That's how much inventory we have. And the drain is a little clogged because housing affordability is the lowest it's been in 4 decades. So the drain is about 20% clogged, maybe 30%, depending on who you talk to. So it's draining out slowly. That's what we have. Here's the way it looks. We have right now about 725,000 homes for sale in the United States, compared to what? About 140 million housing units. Only 0.5% of the inventory is for sale. That's nothing. Normal market, about 1% of the inventory is for sale. Okay? We should have double this in inventory to be balanced in a normal market. And, if you look back about, 7, 8, 9 years, we had a pretty balanced normal market back then. We don't have that now. We're still very undersupplied. Oh, by the way, compared to what? The lowest point during the COVID era was 240,000 homes for sale. Okay? So there's your comparison. Compared to what? Life's most important question. But the real comparison is per capita, right? How many homes are available per person? That's what really matters. That's the relative thing. And this chart, I just have to tell you, is wrong. Why? Well, I'll get to that in a moment. Okay? But this chart shows that per capita housing inventory is extremely low, not the lowest it's ever been. It dipped into the lowest point during the COVID era when everybody took their house off the market. Okay? But it is still very, very low. So this is already happening. And I talked about this. I did this chart about a year ago. What we did is we did a study of housing affordability based on interest rates. And we used 7% as a baseline and said, okay, if the rates go down 0.5 point to 6.5, how many new people can qualify for the median priced home? And the answer was 2.8 million. But wait a sec, let's back up. How much inventory do we have? 700,000, 725, okay? 2.8 million new people can already now qualify for the median price home. We've added 2.8 million, right? You get to 6%, and arguably, we're probably at 6%. I think in investment property, non-owner occupied rates, so they're a little higher, right? 5.4 million new people can afford to buy a house. We get to 5.5, which has been my prediction of what is kind of stasis, okay? And Fannie Mae's prediction as to where we're going is about 5.5. That means 7.7 million new people can afford to buy and qualify for the mortgage on the median priced home. Well, of course, just because they can qualify doesn't mean they're going to buy, doesn't mean they're going to enter the market, doesn't mean they're going to start making offers and bidding up prices. But a third of them probably would. What happens when 2 million-ish new buyers enter the market when there's only 725,000 homes for sale? You do the math. Well, here's the way you answer the question. I grew up in a middle-class family. People had nice lawns. Are you fucking kidding me? I mean, how can this person actually be a potential most powerful person in the world? It's truly shocking. Okay. Anyway, over 69% of borrowers have loan-to-value ratios under 60%. We didn't talk about LTV yet. They have a lot of equity. It's nothing like 2008. Folks, if everybody's thinking 2008 is coming, they're totally mistaken. And I know the most famous last words of every investor, we all know it. This time it's different. It actually is different though, okay? So there you go. It really is different. Compared to what? Okay, we didn't talk about this. So anyone from Springfield, Ohio? No? Oh, good, okay. How's your cat doing? Okay, all right. So the census is only once every 10 years, and we have had a massive increase in population. So all of those numbers, remember I told you the numbers, were about 1.4 million homes should be for sale to have a balanced market. And that's true until you add 11 million new illegal immigrants over the last few years. That changes the dynamic quite a bit. And I know you're all foaming at the mouth. I'm so glad I own all this real estate because there's more demand for housing, right? And you're right, that's true. And initially that will give you a bump. But in the long term, it's very bad news. Now, I'm sorry, by the way, I have to apologize. I don't want to call them illegal immigrants. I'm going to use Hillary's term, workers without papers. That's the right term. I don't have to show you any chart here that just shows you that this is absolutely shocking what has happened. We have no borders in the country. It's just totally shocking, okay? So, this is a lot of new housing demand you're looking at in that picture, okay? Even when they live 4 people to a bedroom, they're gonna live somewhere, mostly. Okay, and that is a lot of new housing demand. So I talked about inflation-induced debt destruction earlier, and why did I bring that up? Well, here's why. Because this is just the state cost of illegal immigration, okay, per state. This does not include the federal cost. Well, inflation happens when the government overspends. Right now, we have over 35 trillion with a T dollars in debt. We have, depending on who you ask, about $220 trillion of unfunded mandates going forward in time that simply cannot be paid by math alone. Tax the rich, they'll say. Well, fine, okay, the IRS takes in about $4 trillion a year, okay, so there's kind of like some numbers. The GDP of the entire country, in other words, all the labor efforts, all the production of every human in the country only adds up to about $25 trillion. So to pay for the problem, you would have to enslave the entire country to just pay the debt for 2 years. You'd have to make everybody work for free, which they probably wouldn't do, okay? And going forward, for all those unfunded promises the government has made into the future, you'd have to enslave the entire country for 11 years and make them at 100% tax rate. You don't get to keep any of your money. Pay it all to the government, right? Impossible. But she has a plan. So don't worry, there's a plan, okay? And it has to do with growing up in a middle-class family. All right. And Taylor Swift, she's okay too. I just want you to know that, okay? Good luck dealing with this shit while I hide in one of my mansions. It's unbelievable. It truly is. Okay, anyway. So look, we're going to have more inflation either way. And last night, the dinner conversation, by the way, is Nick in the room? Nick took us out to this great dinner at Ocean Prime, a whole bunch of us. I know I didn't tag enough of you on Facebook, so sorry about that. One of the subjects that Joe McCall brought up was the subject of what do we do depending on the election? Well, I don't think you need to stress about it too much because either way, you're going to make a lot of money. Okay? During the Obama era, as much as I was not an Obama fan, I bet you couldn't have guessed that. Okay. I made tons of money with Obama, okay? I mean, inflation-induced debt destruction, very, very profitable for you. So a lot of you got this card. We've got another great mastermind trip on yachts. I chartered 3 yachts in the British Virgin Islands for February, and this is how they look. These are the rooms still available, so see me if you're interested in that, or go to familymastermindadventures.com. The URL is at the bottom. And by the way, one more shout out to Matt on this when we talk about leadership. So when I came to Matt many months ago with this idea, a lot of people would have possibly responded differently, right? They would have said, well, how can I participate? How can I make some money off this? You know what Matt said? How can I support you? And that's the kind of leader he is. And that really makes a difference.